few months back, we talked about an important play. Somebody Done Bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church, written by Buffalo playwright and Birmingham native Marie Mullen. After a successful staging of the play here in Buffalo, this play is now ready to travel to Birmingham. So this morning, Marie is back, and historian and editor Paul Denning join us about the path that this play is going to take back to basically its roots.
Its roots.
So good morning, and nice to have you here.
Good morning.
And Marie, again, this play has been written on historical fact. It's been now staged in Buffalo.
Yes.
And it's been going very well. How people are receiving this.
Yes.
It's an amazing, important part of history.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We started this a few years ago, and now it looks as though we're scheduled to be on stage at the University of Alabama, July 15th this year. So we're making plans, we're working hard. We're going to have a fundraiser to help us raise the needed funds to go. It's very expensive for us to travel down, so we need help.
Yes, and because you want to bring your company of actors.
Absolutely,
so
we have a huge cast.
Pay for that, right?
Yes, yes, just our bus alone, it's over $10,000.
Marie, quickly tell people your connection to this part of history.
In 1963, the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed on a Sunday morning, and there were 4 little girls that were killed that day. One little girl, Addie Mae Collins, was my friend, and she had invited me to come to the church that day. It was Youth Day, and I'm on my way out of my mother's house, and a voice told me not to go to my own church. So I walked about 7 blocks in the neighborhood. My parents thought I had gone on to that church too. And I walked about 7 blocks to my own church. I wasn't supposed to be there because I was going to 16th Street Baptist Church. So I sit in the back waiting on my parents to come in. The service started, and Reverend Davis said, somebody handed him a note. All of a sudden he got this look on his face, and he dismissed church and told everybody to go home. I walked home. By the time I got home, I realized, I saw it on the news. It was all over the news that they had bombed that church and 4 little girls were dead. And later on, I found out one was my friend, Addie Mae.
And here we are years later.
Over 50 years later.
You basically continue to get the message that you need to do more with this.
There was something about it.
Right.
Something about it. I just couldn't sit on it. I sat on it when I first came to Buffalo for a long time. Then I was inspired by what had happened to those 4 girls, not just Addie Mae Collins, all 4 of those girls, the things that were happening in Birmingham. I never thought I'd end up writing a play.
And isn't it amazing, the
path
amazing that was put in front of you?
Yes, very much so.
We have got to get this play to Birmingham. They were already scheduled to perform it. So the fundraiser is coming up at the Mount Olive Baptist Church Theater Ministry at the Baptist Church on Delaware Avenue, April 1st.
Delavan
Avenue.
Yes.
Delavan Avenue,
yes,
sorry.
Delavan Avenue, yes.
April 1st at 3 o'clock. It's going to be a wonderful event, reception, entertainment, and dinner. And we need the funds because the message has to get out.
Absolutely.
Paul, tell me about your part in this as a historian.
The historian part is a good example of that is that when Marie writes her plays, I make sure that, for example, there are scenes with ministers who were working with Martin Luther King Jr. At the time, but people have a misconception that Dr. King was earlier in the movement than he really was. A. Philip Randolph had already been working, Whitney Young had already been working. There were ministers primarily in the North and in the South working that really weren't working together. It was like any group of people. There were lots of different leaders. So I make sure that the characters that populate the scenes of the black ministers meeting, and some liberal white ministers, including Southerners too, were the actual people. So that it was Dr. Ralph Abernathy, it was Fred Shuttlesworth. It was people who were really working with Dr. King at the time, and what their background was and what they brought to those events that were going on.
So the historical timeline is correct.
Yes,
for current modern audiences that see this.
Yes, very important.
And Marie, that must have been a big help to you because you're writing from a passion point of view.
Absolutely.
And you need to get the historical timeline correct.
Exactly.
Yes.
He would take my work take a red pen and mark it up and hand it back to me, and I had to make all those corrections. I had no
English
problem.
teacher.
Right, he's a former English teacher. I had no problem whatsoever. I was very grateful to have him. He's an intricate part of what we're doing.
Marie, did you ever write anything before this?
When my dad passed away, I wrote in the limousine on my way to the funeral a 7-stanza poem.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write it. I didn't write it, Linda. My field was fashion. This was God. All of this was inspired.
It's just an amazing,
that's why
amazing project.
When people will think that there's nothing to the Bible, the Bible wasn't inspired by God, it was written by inspiration of God, I can attest to that. I really can. I'm not a writer, so this was written through me.
Although this play is the 7th play she's written.
Right, it's the 7th play.
It's a miraculous
It really is.
It is. It's a miraculous.
It really is.
And so, and I know that the audiences who have seen it in Buffalo have just been dumbfounded. They have, it's standing room only. And it has such a history,
right.
and it has such a future.
Yeah.
Because we need to get this more on the road, and now it's going to go back to where it all started in Birmingham, and we got to get people to make sure that we can fund this. This is called An Elegant Evening to Remember. It's a fundraiser at the Mount Olive Baptist Church on Delavan Avenue, April 1st, so please mark that on your calendar.
Yes.
Because you're going to see a little excerpt of it, and there's going to be entertainment there and a dinner, and a lot of folks whose passion is to see this play, the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, continue on and get down to Birmingham and around the country after that.
Yes.
All right?
Yes,
Marie, thank you. Paul,
Appreciate that.
Thank you for your passion on this, and it's just such an exciting historical thing to be a part of, and we're so looking forward to the continued success.
Thank you.
And the involvement of everybody to get this to a huge audience.
Yes, thank you.
It's important.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
We'll take a quick break and be right back.
Thank you.